Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hello dear learners, I Dr. Jay Jivani welcome you at our Chaitanya studio on behalf of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University Ahmedabad. In the last lecture we had talked about linguistic problems of translation, specifically in terms of theoretical. And now we are going to take a case study specifically from Hindi to English. When we talk about Hindi to English translation, what does it mean? It is going to be an interlingual translation. Do you remember Lefebvre's three types of translation? Intralingual translation, interlingual translation and intersemiotic translation. And when you translate from one language to another language, it is interlingual translation. So here we are going to take a case study of Hindi and English. So as we all know, translation is a complex and it is a complex bridge between languages. And here we have Hindi and English which present unique challenges. Each of this language, Hindi and English, has distinct structures. For example, SVO is used in English: subject, verb and object. I teach English. Subject, verb, object. When we talk about Hindi, मैं हिंदी पढ़ाता हूँ. Subject, object, verb. So Hindi and English present unique challenges. Each language has distinct structures. It has cultural contexts. Hindi would have ancient, mostly I mean Indian, Asian context, whereas English has Western context, and also idiomatic expressions that create hurdles, that create problems when we are conveying the meaning accurately. So the nuances of these languages can be lost or it can be distorted without deep linguistic and cultural understanding of the languages. In this presentation, in this class, we will be exploring major linguistic problems, translations when we face when working between these two languages, which are Hindi and English. From lexical ambiguities, ambiguities means problems, to poetic elements. We will also look at strategic approaches to overcome these challenges, these problems, for effective communication, to find out equivalents, to find out exact meanings, to convey the proper exact meanings. First is lexical ambiguity. One word has multiple meanings, right? For example, we take the word example kal. Kal can be yesterday in Hindi, it can be tomorrow, right? It depends on the context. मैं कल जाऊंगा, मैं कल गया था. So when we are talking about the word kal, it can also mean yesterday, it can also mean tomorrow. We require the, depending on the context. Context is very much important over here and it will lead to confusion in translation without proper temporal cues. So there can arise lexical ambiguity when one word has multiple meanings. Let's take the case of English. For example, bank. Bank can mean financial bank, from where we get the money, economy. It can also mean a side of a river, and it requires context awareness to translate correctly into Hindi. So what happens? Here arises lexical ambiguities, and these ambiguities, these problems, demands translators to interpret the context carefully. Why? So that we can avoid mistranslation and we can preserve the intended meanings. I want you to take a pause over here Write down 5 to 10 examples in Hindi and write down the multiple meanings of it. Same with the Hindi. Take one word which has multiple meanings, write down those sentences using those words and translate them. It will help you to understand how to overcome this lexical ambiguities. The second comes, slide please, syntactic differences. As I said, syntax is how the words are ordered into a language in a sentence to make the meaning out of it. So, sentence structures variations are there when we talk about Hindi and English. For Hindi, the sentence structure or syntax of Hindi language is subject plus object plus verb is the order of the Hindi language. Subject plus object plus verb. Ram सेब खाता है. Ram is a subject, सेब is object and khata hai is a verb over here. In English it would be different. Ram eats an apple. And if you translate it literally, Ram apple eats does not make any meaning. So this order emphasizes the sentence verb at the end, shaping how information is processed. When we look at English syntax, it uses subject plus verb plus object. Ram eats an apple. Here, if you see the positioning, it alters the natural flow and focus compared to Hindi. So the structures of both the languages are differences. It means literal translations. If you translate it literally, for example, Ram eats an apple, Ram khata hai seb, changes the whole meaning and it sounds so awkward. It does not make sense at times. The clarity becomes ambiguous and it forces translators to reframe the sentences appropriately. So, when you are translating, the first arises lexical ambiguities which you can overcome when word is there and multiple meanings are there. Then comes syntactic differences, which means sentence structures of both the languages are different. So, you will have to look after the syntax, which means sentence structures as well. The third comes cultural nuances. Untranslatable cultural references are there in your language. For example, the first is there are unique concepts. For example, in Hindi, we have sati pratha, or we have caste system, that is jati, or festivals like Diwali, Holi have very cultural roots within Hindi language, right? And it cannot be translated in English. You cannot find English equivalents for that, which will create a challenge for all the translators who are translating from Hindi to English. There will be a problem of conveying the precise social significance. When we say Holi, when we say Diwali, even the word Namaskar has a social significance. It is not just hello or good morning. Second, religious and festive references, as I said. Like Diwali, I gave an example. You'll have to give a descriptive translation of Diwali. You'll have to give it in the footnotes. It cannot just swap the simple words. It cannot just be exchange of words. To full cultural context, you'll have to give the footnotes. You'll have to explain it. Just swapping of the words is not possible when there are religious or festive references are there. The third, impact on translation. Without this cultural explanations, without explaining the word Diwali, without explaining the word namaskar, without explaining the word Sanskruti, it cannot just be translated as culture and tradition. If you do not explain this, translation risk losing depth or feeling to foreign to the target audience. English audience requires to understand what Diwali festival is. Why is it celebrated in India? And this is how you would be able to overcome the cultural nuances by giving footnotes, maybe by giving cultural context in different ways. Then comes idioms and expressions. You'll have to find different idioms and expressions. You cannot literally translate like mere pet mein choohe dod rahe hai cannot be translated as rats are running in my stomach. Here, for example, we have naach ne jaane aangan teda. What it literally means? Can't dance, blames the uneven counter yard. I'm sorry. When we are translating Hindi idioms, for example, naach ne jaane aangan teda, what does it literally mean? Can't dance, blames the uneven courtyard. It is used for someone blaming external factors. It cannot be literally translated. How would you translate that? Find an equivalent idiom or expression which is there in English. For example, a bad workman blames his tools. Can be used in place of naach na jaane aangan teda. It conveys a similar meaning but cannot be translated word for word without losing significance. So, for effective translation, it replaces with culturally relevant equivalence rather than literal conversions to preserve intended meaning and tone. It depends on the context, I repeat. But whenever there are idioms and expressions or phrases, you can try to find out similar idioms and expressions and translate it. I want you to pause over here, take 10 different idioms that you have in Hindi and then you translate them in English. Find out equivalent idioms or expressions which are there in English and then again swap it. Write down 10 English idioms or phrases or expressions which are there in English and then you translate or find out exact equivalence. Not exact equivalence but equivalent idioms or expressions which are available there in your language. And that's it for today's case study. What we have learnt, what we have discussed first lexical ambiguity, we have discussed syntactic differences, sentence structure differences, then we have talked about cultural nuances, then we have talked about idioms and expressions. Also, one thing which we are forgetting is loss of poetic elements. Okay, pause. We have talked about idiomatic expressions. Now, we are going to talk about technical terminology. Whenever there is technical terminology, how do we ensure accuracy and consistency? The very first requirement is research those terminologies. Identify accurate technical terms in both the languages. For that, what you can do is you can consult subject experts when required. Somebody, when you are translating a book from the medical field, make sure you keep a subject matter expert over there. You can talk to medical consultants, doctors while making a dictionary of that, while translating medical text. So, not just linguistic translation, but subject review is much more important for when you are translating text which is full of technical terminologies. Second, you have to maintain consistencies. For that, what you can do, you can use glossaries and standard dictionaries consistently throughout the translation to avoid confusion. And the third one is contextual avoidance. And the third is contextual adaptation. You adapt terms considering the target audience's familiarity without sacrificing correctness. This is how technical translation demands precision, and thoroughness to ensure the usability and professionalism in translation when you are completing the final product. And the last one is loss of poetic elements. For that, rhythm, rhyme and alliteration are required. For example, rhythm. For take an example, Hindi poetry often relies on specific metrical pattern that does not directly map to English poetic metres. One of loss of poetic elements will always be there when you are translating from Hindi to English. Rhyme can also be a problem. Alliteration can be the third problem. And the fourth can be translation implication. This will be the loss of poetic elements which does not have any possible solutions mostly because rhythm cannot be translated, rhyme cannot be translated, alliteration most of the time would be a problem. It may not be possible to replicate without altering meanings. What are the strategies that we can use? First, contextual understanding. Second, adaptation over literalism. Always adapt it. Don't go word for word. Don't do literal translation. Third, use terminologies. And fourth, you always collaborate with subject experts. These are the strategies that we can use while translating from Hindi to English or English to Hindi. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in the next lecture with the next topic on translation. Thank you for joining us. Keep listening, keep watching, keep working. All the best.